Bienvenidos y hola. Yo soy Scott Soshnick.
Y yo me llamo Eben Novi Williams. Y this is the
Qué bueno.
Madrid y Nadie Más Sports Business Podcast, the Sporticast.
All right. That's pretty good for us. Not bad at all. I like it. Obviously, we're talking a little soccer here at the
Off
start.
the cuff, you put me on the spot there, Scott.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to warn you. No, I didn't warn you. You could have gone any way you wanted. I didn't warn you. Sorry, my friend. Oh, you just disappeared on me. What happened? You there? You still there?
I'm here, yeah.
All right. You had a little flicker there. Real Madrid, you wrote about it in Club Sportico. We now have sort of the pathway forward. And I'll just set it up backdrop and let you get into sort of where you went on Club Sportico. But you're in a world now where sovereign wealth funds are investing in sports teams. The idea, it's almost like the idea of having a Green Bay Packers in a world where NFL clubs were allowed to be owned by the sovereigns. One's going to spend lavishly and wildly, and Real Madrid is owned by the supporters. They're called socios, and the leadership of the club had said, we need to do something to bolster the finances of the club. We value them at $6.5 billion. It's the most valuable soccer team in the world, according to our Kurt Bodenhausen. So it may seem odd to say, well, it'll be struggle to compete against these others, but in a rapidly changing landscape where whether it be PIF or the QIA or Norway, Mubalada, you get the chance that something had to change, and they have decided to take a path that we've sort of seen, right? This is something we're getting more comfortable with. It's not like a spin-off entity where you're going to sell a stadium or the media entity, but they're looking to take on a little cash and a partner, so to speak.
Yeah, I find this story fascinating. There's so many different ways, obviously, in the modern sports economy where we've seen this conflict between a sport's traditional roots or a team's traditional roots and the modern realities of operating as a multi-billion-dollar sports and entertainment brand. And Real Madrid
mom and pop hardware, right? The sin mom. There we are, mom and pop hardware.
Exactly. So Real Madrid, as you said, has been owned by its fans since 1902. It's a structure that, up until now, Scott, has worked pretty darn well for the team. It's basically one of, if not the most storied sports teams in Europe. But as you said, we're now at a point where rich people, rich firms, rich countries are pouring billions of extra dollars into their sports teams. And Real Madrid does not have that ability right now because of its structure. It is a tax-exempt organization in Spain. Every single dollar they make goes back into the club.
Back into the club. Yeah,
that's
no
a
dividends.
Lot of money. They were the first soccer team ever to make more than $1 billion in a single year. Those numbers are growing exponentially in the last few years. So this team has a lot of money. But its president, Florentino Perez, who is a socio himself, has been ringing these alarm bells for a while. And the delicate balance that he's trying to thread is, Scott, he's trying to do two things. He's trying to preserve this very traditional fan-owned, fan-controlled structure, which is different than most clubs in Europe, trying to preserve that while also allowing the team to take on a multi-$100 million check or $1 billion check from some investor. And the structure that he has essentially decided on that will be voted on by owners, which he announced this week in Madrid, is he wants to sell 5%. He wants to create this essentially
up to 10%, which could bring it up to $1 billion.
10%.
Yeah.
Spin off so that the person who buys that 10%, the group that buys that 10%, does get dividends. There's no dividends paid right now to the fan owners. They get dividends but have no voting rights. And the fans would continue to hold the 95% or the 90%, would continue to have all of the control. And that's his pitch. This is Perez's pitch. This is the delicate balancing act. I'm trying to figure out a way to inject serious money into this club while also preserving one of the things that everybody seems to love about this team is that it has managed to, at least until 2025, maintain this 100-plus-year-old structure at a time, as we said, when sovereign wealth and petrostates and rich billionaires are buying up these teams left and right.
And there were 4 clubs, right? There were 4 clubs that were allowed to keep this structure.
So in the 90s, there were all of the Spanish sports teams were built as
We're
this
like
tax-free
this.
nonprofit, and then
Yeah.
they transitioned over to being essentially kind of the more private LLC style that we think of today in the U.S. as basically all of our teams. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, and Osasuna were the four that were allowed to continue this. So Barcelona has
I
the
asked
same
por qué.
structure.
The two word por qué to be Spanish accurate here.
Yeah, I think that in some ways the tax benefits were really huge. The Real and Barcelona obviously have been quite successful under this model for a while. But Barcelona, even more so than Real Madrid, and we can get into both of them, but both of them have been feeling the pinch in recent years. And they have both done the same thing. Instead of obviously selling a chunk of the team, which they haven't been able to do, they've been creating these side entities that have some commercial rights in them, and then partnering on those. So
Yeah,
Real
real
Madrid
estate,
has
media
a
rights.
real estate, which you and I talked about 2 weeks ago when we had Alex Wick speak at our conference. The new Bernabeu, Sixth Street is a partner in that, and Sixth Street gave, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was almost $400 million, I think, 360 million euros to get 20 years of revenue share as part of the new Bernabeu project. Providence Equity Partner Scott had a 200 million euro deal back in 2017 for a cut of future sponsorships for Real Madrid. Barcelona's done even more of these things. Barcelona basically kind of fire sold pieces of almost
That was their
all of its
media deal
commercial
of
rights
almost everything. Yeah.
over the last few years. So, in lieu of trying to blow up this structure, these two giants of Spanish soccer have kind of figured out ways on the edges to get money without compromising the structure. And now it looks like Real Madrid is going to push to compromise the structure a little bit to try to preserve the underlying ethos of it, which is that the fans control and own the bulk of this team, with the idea that they just need to get more money on board, and this is the easiest way to do it.
No truth to the rumor that Tony Petiti is putting on the nose, mustache, and glasses to attend the meeting to see how one can get creative in such meetings and approve, because you need everybody on board. I mean I see the synergies there, where a Michigan would be a Real Madrid, right? At
Yeah.
USC we could say could be Barcelona. But if the socios have to agree here, that's it. They will maintain control of the club. That is the most important part here, I think, that he's trying to thread, is that mom and pop hardware, a division of Global Dominance Inc. or whatever it was. You don't want the global dominance to be too obvious.
And you open this by talking about the Packers. The Real Madrid's ownership structure and the Packers is actually kind of similar. They don't sell kind of new rounds of ownership, but it is fan controlled, and there's voting structures, and there's no dividends, and there is.
But
kind
every
of a
time they
tightness
need
to
to, yeah, but every time they need to do something, need a couple $100 million to improve Lambeau Field, they say let's issue some new certificates. And again, they're
exactly,
non-voting. We just need some people to buy them.
that's the difference. If and obviously the economics of these sports are quite different. So the Packers are doing quite well. There is a pay cap. If the Packers were in Major League Baseball, I could see a world where their president was saying, "Look, I know this is a cute ownership structure, but the Dodgers are paying $350 million for their roster every year, and we need a way to compete with that, which is not compatible with our current structure." Football is actually kind of a tidy way to do this because, as you know, Scott, all of these teams turn so much profit, $100+ million profit, basically table stakes for the league. Because of that, there's less of an imperative to we need to spend to keep pace with all of our competitors. So in some ways, the Packers are a perfect kind of analog in American sports for what the structure looks like. And then in other ways, it's just totally different economics, totally different game theory, and totally different strategy.
I wonder if they looked and said, well, why do the Dodgers have that advantage? And as your RSN revenue or local media revenue is shrinking, you've got the Dodgers with that beautiful deal, equity in the network, and which they knew, by the way, when they made their bid to buy the club out of bankruptcy, that this was going to be a cornerstone of the revenue. Then you throw a Shohei Ohtani on top of it and the ability to monetize on the international basis, and you've just built a better mousetrap. It's that simple. They've just got a better mousetrap. So you got to get creative for ways to try to compete with that.
And I wonder if we think about the looking forward in European soccer, let's go 10 years or 20 years. Is this going to be enough to keep Real Madrid competitive, right? They are going to continue to make an insane amount of money on the pitch. I cannot imagine this team falls off in any capacity. But if you look at their ownership structure, if you look at the teams in Germany, for example, they have that 50+1 where fans have to own, they're legally have to own.
I think it'll be 40 up to 49%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least 50% of the owning shares are 50%+1 vote. I think it's an open question that a lot of people are reckoning with now, is that as this continues to grow, as players continue to get paid more uncapped, as valuations continue to soar, how do we square kind of the last vestiges of the kind of community nature of soccer in the early 1900s in Europe? How do we square that with the fact that, again, in the 21st century now, these things are multi-billion dollar. If you listen to Florentino Perez, he thinks this team, Real Madrid, is worth 10+ billion euros.
He thinks we undervalued it. Yep.
Yeah, he thinks we undervalued it by half, essentially.
40%.
Right? That's almost
yeah.
$12 million.
Yep.
So in some ways, we'll get a sense, I think, to see what Real Madrid is like in quasi open market, just to see what they end up doing with this 5% or 10%. But then there's also complications here. I mentioned the stadium partnership they have with Sixth Street as a piece of that. Their sponsorships have Providence Equity inside of it. How do you value a team that has kind of these disparate commercial enterprises, that has already pre-existing partners with revenue share as part of it? There's a whole bunch of reasons why this is going to be particularly dicey. And then layer on top of that, Scott, within La Liga, there is a talk about how much money teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona share with their league mates. Does that change at some point? How much of Real Madrid's relative autonomous revenue capture right now, how much does that change? There's been private equity at the league level in La Liga as well. This is going to be a thorny and complicated deal for a lot of different reasons, and also probably going to be the biggest soccer deal from a valuation standpoint that we've ever seen by quite a large margin.
You couldn't even get everybody on board to letting them play one regular season game in Miami. So
perfect example about how difficult some of these things can be when you've got disparate interests and different authority and different kinds of power.
I had a good chuckle at our event when, sometimes you're just sitting there, and I won't say the who's are, but, I asked one of the people who was there from the club. I said, so can you tell me what will the revenue difference be when the new stadium is humming versus where you are now? And there was somebody from Sixth Street within earshot who said, "Oh, I'd like to hear the answer to
that." I hope it's a big number.
Yeah, exactly. Let us just say no number was given. It was more than, I'll tell you that, more than we are now, but no specific number was given. Speaking of numbers going up and down, you and Dan Libet and Lev had a big feature day on UMass football, and it's been quite a struggle for how long now? A decade-long struggle plus?
A little bit over a decade, yeah.
Yeah, trying to get to the top level at what seemed like a no-brainer however many years ago. And I just wrote that. I'll let you tell the quick tale on sort of UMass and why and how this has not worked out and what they're considering. But there were some lines. It isn't every day that outside of Krupe, when I read him, there isn't every day I get an audible chuckle. I mean, I audibly chuckled. So can I read that line and then I'll do the second one?
Sure.
Here, where are we? Where I'm trying to... the crash sent... so this is like one of their games. The crash sent hydraulic fluid spilling onto the turf, prompting a hazmat team to be summoned, but it could only do so much damage control. And then here's my favorite line. UMass went on to lose 47-42 to Bowling Green. Here's the line that got my chuckle. Earlier this season, the team drew online ridicule when it launched fireworks following a field goal that cut its deficit against Northern Illinois to 42 points.
That was a 45-0 game.
Launch
Scott,
the cannons.
When they put points on the board, they set the fireworks off.
Oh my God! This is Princeton sprint football worthy chuckles.
Oh, we would never do that. Yeah, because we rarely scored at all. So. Cutting the deficit to 42 points, I'm very familiar with. I know that feeling quite well. I find UMass to be a fascinating story, and particularly interesting now because people who are listening to this on Tuesday morning when it drops, this afternoon at 4:30, UMass is playing their final game of the season. They may go 0-11 or
I'm rooting
0-12.
for him now.
They're going
I'm
to go
rooting for
winless
him.
this year. It would be great if they got a win for sure. And I have thought about UMass for a while because back in when we were at Bloomberg and I was writing a lot about this kind of interplay between the top two divisions of college football. UMass moved up to FBS. They had a very big announcement in 2011. The press conference is still online. If people are curious, I recommend they watch it. It is a classic example of the exuberance that we saw from a lot of schools back then.
But and
really
yet the architect said they put. Remember the architect in your story says I pegged this as a long shot.
Yeah, a lot of people did not, right? And
Yeah.
Bob Kraft is there, and they were going to play their games in Gillette Stadium, which is 90 miles away from Amherst. And right off the bat, you could imagine why a not so good college football team playing 90 miles away from campus in an NFL venue maybe isn't the best idea. They basically abandoned that after 4 or 5 years. The team has really struggled. They made a few kind of catastrophic errors early on. They were in the MAC for football, and then faced a decision to essentially move everybody to the MAC, which would have been taking its basketball team out of the A10, or leave the MAC for football. They chose the latter. They made the football team independent. As an independent school, Scott, it's a struggle if your name is not Notre Dame. You don't get media rights via a conference. Scheduling games is also quite difficult. You basically have to create your own schedule all the time. You end up doing a lot of buy games that help balance your budget, but also are bad for the team in the long run. A whole bunch of reasons why independent was bad. And if you look at the numbers, it's hard to make
Can I read the second quote? Can I read the second quote? You just said that's a great when you said if you look at the numbers, let me look at the numbers. And this quote coming from Ryan Bamford, he's the athletic director.
He's the AD, yeah.
Yeah. So, quote, for a program to have $2 million or less from the school's general operating funds, that's not a lot, he said. When you consider that the university budget is about $1.8 billion with a B, and we're getting less than $2 million to go to football, I think that tells the story of why we are where we are. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, I was shocked when he said that. And it is essentially the ethos that UMass has right now. And that's why I think this story is so interesting right now, is that in face of all of that, which I just described, a lot of struggles, some of it comedic, a lot of it financial, what the school is doing right now is doubling down. And if you talk to folks who are at the school now, yeah, they would tell you that their football team has been under-resourced. And as a result, and you heard it there from Ryan Bamford, he has convinced the school has decided that it wants to invest more in football. So they're back in the MAC now. They paid to leave the Atlantic 10. They have the highest paid football coach in the MAC, which would have been kind of impossible to predict a few years ago. They're finally doing renovations on a stadium, Scott, that was built in the 60s and basically has not been touched since. There were not permanent bathrooms, from what I understand, in that venue until relatively recently. So they're investing the money now. And I think people around the school kind of view this as a reset of the football project. That moving up to FBS was good intentioned. They did it wrong. The financial projections were not great. Fast forward to 2025, the team is bad, is the worst team in FBS by quite a large margin. There are more than a dozen Division II football teams, Scott, that by the numbers are better football teams than UMass is right now. That's how bad this team is right now. But the school does seem to believe, and Ryan Bamford said it to me in our conversation, that if you combine all these things, stadium renovation, they redid the locker rooms recently, they have a higher paid coach, they're in a better conference now, they really believe that by increasing the school's spending on football, at least in the near term, that this is going to right size. And if it right sizes, yeah, they'd love to kind of reap the benefits of what happens when a football team is good. But I don't think it's hard to put the other glasses on for a second and see this as a potential cautionary tale for schools that think that they're going to move
plenty
up
of
the
those.
Conference, spend a little bit in football. The football team's going to be self-sustaining, which was basically the projection back in 2011, that it was going to be balancing its own budget in 3 or 4 years after the school launched. That obviously did not happen. But yeah, there are schools that have moved up, there's schools that have moved down, there's schools that have stayed up that maybe shouldn't have. And I think UMass is a nice little microcosm of a lot of those different forces colliding all at once.
You're right. You got a little dry throat there. What's going on there, Novi?
I do, yeah.
You're looking like you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I need some tea.
All right, I thought you had some, but we'll do it just a quickie here. We'll finish off with Warner Brothers Discovery on the market. We find interesting the three bidders: Paramount, Comcast, Netflix. Like, this seems simple to me. I mean, but what do I know? Paramount, of course, backed by David Ellison, will take the whole shebang. Like, we'll buy the whole company. Okay, seems to be the preferred bidder of the Trump administration. And then Comcast and Netflix, they want the studio and the streaming, which will allow a spin out of the others. If you combine, I mean, Paramount, remember, is the parent company of CBS.
Yep.
CBS's portfolio of sports is pretty damn attractive. Then you go adding the Warner Brothers Discovery stuff to it. That's quite a sports heavyweight there that I'm not sure anybody competes with. I mean, that's a competitor to ESPN, yes?
Definitely a competitor to ESPN. One thing it would do is consolidate all of the March Madness rights. The two kind of
TNT and CBS.
Yeah, would bring them both under the same roof. Not sure to the extent that really matters, but I'm sure it would.
True TV also. I don't want to leave out the True TV.
True TV as well.
This moment, I have absolutely zero idea what channel True TV is on my thing, on my lineup. But come the first week of March, I will find out what that is.
You and the 10 other people that still use cable channels.
Yeah, yes, or don't have the kind of I don't have the Comcast remote that you can just say, True TV and it changes it. No, I got old school clicker. I love that I'm so old school on this.
Yeah, but no question. And then you mentioned the other bidders there. Comcast and Netflix seem to be bidding only for partial pieces of Warner Brothers Discovery, mainly the stream and the film studio and streaming aspects. So there's a chance here. It seems like that Warner Brothers sports assets could combine with Paramount and CBS, or it seems possible that Warner Brothers would spin out its cable networks and its sports in order to do a smaller deal,
different transaction
again, for the studio and the streaming assets with one of these other companies. But we've seen a lot of consolidation in this world, Scott, in the last few years. It certainly seems like there's going to be more. And yeah, it does create a fascinating kind of dual scenario here. If you're a sports rights holder and you're used to TNT and CBS potentially bidding against each other for things, do you want to see these things combined into one entity under the Ellisons? Would you rather them remain separate because it gives you more competition and potentially in bidding wars higher dollars? A lot of things at play here, not just for sports, obviously, but also for the TV and the streaming side as well.
I thought Paramount was going to be built on Landman and all that, but that's ending in a few years. So
yeah,
why not sports
Taylor
then?
Sheridan walk right after we talked about Taylor Sheridan.
He doesn't walk. He jumps on the horse and he rides away. He rides into the sunset, my friend. He doesn't walk. Taylor's riding into the sunset,
and I think we will ride into the sunset right here.
Hold on. No, we will. But I've got closing music, and I want you. There's a mythical buzzer in front of you. We'll play Name That Tune. When you know what the tune is, go ahead and say it. But I will give you the hint that it pertains to something you said in the college football talk. So here we go.
Okay,
you should recognize
so I can hear it.
You did a very good DJ closing last week. So you should know this opening music is pretty well known, but I'm just not sure if it's Eben Novy-Williams stuff. So let me know. Here we go.
Oh boy. I'm nervous. Oh, Return to the Mac.
Yeah, there you go. Fantastic, my friend.
Yeah, I know that one immediately.
Come
on.
He
is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams. Find me
love
on Twitter
this song.
At Novy_Williams. Show is produced by Justin Greenewald. Thank you very much to Justin for all that he does. And then Sportico's social media team, which is Matt Palacio, Sebastian Milo, and Carol
needs
tea. Like you to know that you can follow the show at
Keep talking until we get to the hook.
Is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.
I love you.